I am Doomsvince, and this is day 68 of Spawn Year.
I don't know how long it took me fumbling around in the dark before I found the flashlight, but I know comic bags and boards when I feel them. Before I could see anything, I knew I had to be inside the open grave, filled with the rest of the Spawn paraphernalia left for me to review through the rest of Spawn Year. I was instantly mortified. This was it. Doomsvince hadn't bothered to uphold our agreement and wait until I missed a review. I didn't even have today's comic before he sent me here. Didn't even have the chance to fail. I thought perhaps this whole ordeal had become as unbearable for Doomsvince as it often was for me. Was he reading these comics along with me and getting just as frustrated, realizing he had unconsciously condemned himself to the same year-long hell? He has to know something about Spawn, as often as his insidious plans seem to coincide with the events of the story. Even if he wasn't reading every issue, maybe just reading me talking about it every day was enough to make him call the whole thing off. Or maybe I thought he's still reeling about the nightmare that was Spawn the board game, and he didn't want a chance subjecting himself to something worse later on. But then I found, sitting atop an skewed stack of comics, Spawn number 50, with a note attached. It read,
Captain Logan, I thought you might enjoy spending a day in your new eternal home. Remember, it's reserved just for you and all the furnishings are included. All for the low price of your ghost. You have only to give it up at any time within the next 298 days, and all of this will be yours. No mortgage, no possibility of eviction. Do make yourself comfortable. I'm sure you'll be ready to settle in very soon. DMV.
Doomsvince, you shouldn't use DMV as your initials. For a minute there I thought I'd been buried alive by the Department of Motor Vehicles. My journal and pen are here. I breathed a long sigh of relief. He is just playing games again, trying to unnerve me. Stay the course, I told myself. Just keep working. He didn't think you'd pass the 2-month mark, and now he's trying too hard. What would spending one day in this grave do but renew my resolve, to remind me what I'm fighting to avoid, and remind me of what I've lost and so desperately want to get back to? Doomsvince has no doubt dreamed this up because of where Spawn is at the end of this issue. He returns to hell, sacrificing himself to save Terry's life so Wanda will be spared the pain of losing 2 husbands and having to raise a child on her own. Spawn almost completely gave up last time and allowed the costume to completely take over, and now he makes the choice to risk giving himself completely back to hell, not because he wants to quit, but for the same reason he became a Spawn in the first place, for love. I think it's significant that at first he turns his back on Terry when he finds out he has a malignant tumor, is dying, and is deteriorated to the point where he'll practically be a vegetable for the rest of the few weeks of life he does have left. Spawn isn't willing to waste the magic on Terry, who he still thinks is a traitor and has been in league with Wynn since before Al was murdered, which isn't true. But when he realizes what it will do to Wanda, he doesn't hesitate to cure Terry. As inconsistent as he's often been written, that's Al's one major defining character trait. He will always walk in front of the train for his family. And I imagine if he would allow himself to be less dense, entertain the notion that the situation with Terry is more complicated than he's making it, and do some legwork and find out why Terry is working for Wynn, he'd find out that Terry is the same man he knew when he was alive, and then this would have been just as much for Terry as it was for Wanda. It's nice to finally see Al accept that he's never going to be with his wife again, and this is a real self-sacrifice, a choice he makes undisputably for Wanda and not for himself. Unlike the original deal with Malbolgia, which he might have thought was for Wanda, but was actually more about himself and his desire to hold on to the good things in his life. Bolgi preyed on Al's inability to accept that his life was over, and that spilled over to how he was when he returned to Earth, unable to accept that Wanda could be happy without him. Now, with his costume evolving as it feeds on evil, and especially his evil, he's growing up, realizing he's made it all about him and his unrealistic desires. He's made the choices that sent him to hell in the first place. Something else he wrestles with this issue. Was it the killings? He was only following orders, he thinks, and there is no place in Wanda's life for what he's become. So he does something good with that, to help her, that would get him nothing but more pain. As I said last issue, there's not nearly enough natural build-up to this. It would have been great if the Spawn clock was nearly at 0 and Spawn used his last remaining energy to save Terry. Of course, without a sizable contrivance, the series would have ended there, but this seems pretty contrived anyway. Spawn gets sent back to hell just because he tries his powers out after his costume's been going haywire? If this had happened any time in the first 48 issues, he could have healed Terry with 0 consequences to himself. I'm also really confused by Clown's reaction. Last issue, Clown was excited that Spawn might send himself back to hell all by himself, and Spawn would prove Clown's point for him, to Bulgy, without Clown having to lift a finger. But here, it suddenly occurs to Clown that other Spawns made mistakes that sent them to hell too, so it wouldn't prove anything, unless Clown was directly involved. Once again, an idea that wasn't even sort of thought out, so I have to read McFarlane correcting his own logic on the page while he accidentally makes his villains more imbecilic than he probably intended. But even more than that, where did Terry's mysterious cancer come from? This whole time I've assumed that illness came out of Win and Clown's plans. If it did, then hasn't Clown succeeded with flying colors? He would be directly responsible for manipulating Spawn into sacrificing himself back to Bulgy, and that choice naturally would give Al some of his humanity back, which the reader is supposed to want to see happen. That should have been Clown's plan all along. Play on Al's love for his wife, make him make a very in-character choice, and make him consciously ruin what's left of his life by doing the right thing. Wow, I actually love what happens in this issue, and I don't think it happens for the reasons it should. So it's a very simple series of events drawn out to fill double the regular page count. There's a lot of time spent on doctors exploring Terry's condition and Wanda feeling all the emotions anyone would feel in this situation. It isn't that I don't empathize, but it's not like hospital scenes with someone dealing with a spouse in a deathbed are new to me. Make her unique. Give her things to do besides sitting in a hospital room thinking to herself. How does Wanda Blake cope that's different from how other people cope? And when Spawn goes to hell, he's just fighting various creatures trying to feed on his necroplasm. I thought all of hell was made of that stuff, by the way, but apparently McFarlane didn't like that addition from Morrison either, so now it just, quote, serves many uses instead. Spawn discovers he can use his powers without fear of depleting them, so at the end, he evaporates, and Bulgy, elsewhere in time now, says something about Al's next level, whatever that means. Is he going back to Earth? Who knows? Meanwhile, Clown's new plan, to prove he should lead Hell's army, involves impersonating a birthday clown at Cyan's birthday party. Okay, I'm creeped out and all, but if you think Spawn's out of the picture now, why? And since this is a big landmark issue, there are other important revelations and developments. Cog comes out of the Spawn closet. Gee, what a shocker. Of course he was a Spawn. How else could he know and do everything he's known and done? Why did he have to talk in riddles all this time, and now suddenly he just blurts out, I'm a Spawn? Oh, wait. I know, because that's something McFarlane wanted to tell us in the super duper pivotal, don't miss it, you're totally gonna wet yourself, monumental deluxe double size special edition $3.95. Todd actually draws some of this one, spectacular ultra big deal event of the year, issue 50! Also, Terry pulls Spawn's shoelace off his face, so I guess we're over that look now, and for some reason Terry recognizes Al this time and never put Al and Spawn together 24 issues ago when he heard Spawn called Al. I do really like how Grandma Blake figures in here, though. She's the one who sends Al to Terry, and she's who Al goes to, actually taking Cog's advice about finding inner peace. She also confirms for Terry that he wasn't imagining things, and it really was Al who saved his life. I hope Spawn continues to confide in her when he inevitably returns to Earth. Art-wise, every page of this one is masterful, though I don't know why McFarlane chose to give Capullo all the fun hell stuff so he could draw all the boring hospital scenes. And speaking of boring, what am I gonna do trapped in this grave all day?
You will not be allowed to read ahead. You will not be allowed to read ahead. You will not be allowed to read ahead. You will not be allowed to read ahead.